I'm Carol Wilson, and I'm speaking today with Jim Poole from Equinix. Jim, thanks for joining us. So Jim, earlier today you were talking about how exchange companies such as Equinix are becoming a critical part of the cloud ecosystem. Can you explain that a little further?
Sure. Cloud ecosystems are pretty complex. One of the biggest problems we see with cloud delivery is the problem of where does the end user live. And the reality is the end user lives pretty much anywhere, which requires quite a large number of private interconnections if you were to take an individual cloud company and try to map them against every single potential end user. So exchange environments are sort of an ideal scenario where you have a single port that reaches a multitude of carriers and therefore potentially millions of endpoints.
So earlier this year, I think in January, Amazon Web Services announced they were locating their cloud service in one of your exchanges, correct?
Correct.
So tell us more about that.
Sure, so what Amazon has done as a first step is to allow for what they call direct connect, which is essentially a private connection into their switch fabric. And the reason they did that was several-fold. One was a cost issue, since Amazon builds the pricing of their transit into the transfer costs that they pass on to their customers. By getting a private connection, you essentially avoid that upcharge that comes as a part of the service. Secondarily, there's a performance benefit. In internet delivery, there are issues around the reliability of the service. Internet delivery is best effort, and obviously Ethernet delivery, usually there are SLAs involved, as well as classes of service that guarantee performance to the enterprise. That's very attractive for most end users.
So what does this mean for your service provider customers who also want to be in the cloud? Do they feel threatened?
Yes, it's interesting when you talk to a service provider, there's almost a counterintuitive reaction to cloud companies or any customer starting to do exchange services or hubbing is a more general behavior where they come into a facility to essentially avoid certain costs associated with transport down into their buildings. And the reality is quite the opposite. We oftentimes cite the example of our financial services customers who get together in places like our Secaucus facility in order to essentially flat rate the cost of talking to each other. But corporations are interesting entities in the fact that they don't save money, they invest money. And so if you save money on one side, you tend to put it somewhere else. And in this particular case, what they tend to do is reinvest that money in ingest and distribution of information, since the only thing happening in the data center is essentially a decision. At the end of the day, what you get is essentially a lot more network orders to the service provider, even though in the beginning it seems like you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Carrier Ethernet seems like an obvious service choice for cloud services because of its reliability and widespread availability, but it's not designed to be on demand. What changes need to take place for that to happen?
Well, there's quite a bit of work going on in the service provider community around bandwidth on demand. I mean, the reality of cloud services is exactly what you said. They're very elastic. You can pay by the drink, so to speak, and so the increments can go all the way down to the hour. Traditionally, telecom bandwidth contracts are quite the opposite. They're fixed terms over very long periods of time, and you get better pricing in exchange for that convenience. In our conversations with service providers, what they're starting to realize is that the opposite is also true, that if you provide more flexible terms for shorter periods of time, then you can actually charge a premium for the bandwidth provided in that period. And really, for most service providers, it's really a question of automation. And so several providers that we're talking to today are investing quite heavily in automation, precisely so that they can match what the cloud service offering is to their network offering.
Jim, thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you.